So Elon Musk got sued, and even though inflation numbers came in way better than expected, we had a funky market today. What is that going to tell us for tomorrow, and what just happened regarding layoffs, and who's this Pete guy that literally everybody keeps talking about when it comes to the Secretary of Defense? Let's go through all of this along with getting you a little bit of a fire update. We're going to keep this one short and sweet since I'm a little bit behind today, but a lot of progress being made in the studio, which is really exciting because we're going to be coming to you with 4K live streams soon, especially for the inauguration. Very excited. Anyway, let's get started with today's Meet Kevin Report. News that makes you laugh. Okay, so first thing first, PPI this morning came in shockingly low, and my expectation was that if we were going to get a low PPI read, well, then we would have seen a potential rally in the stock market. So we didn't get that. I don't know if it's because everybody's just waiting for CPI tomorrow, which I'll give you some of the estimates, and that way if you're watching this if you're watching this after CPI is already out, you can kind of compare to what the expectations are, and then we can still talk about all of the other goodies, including layoffs and what's going on with micro at various different companies. By the way, speaking of micro, Jim Cramer says that you should sell super microcomputers. I think that's about the most bullish thing I've ever heard. Anyway, so PPI this morning, the expectation was that it was going to come in at 0.4 on the month over month. We got 0.2, which is phenomenal. It came in way lower than expected. That's on the headline number, which includes energy, gas, oil. These are December numbers, right? Month over month core came in at 0 versus the 0.3 expected. Producer prices, less food, energy, and trade. So a further category of core came in at 0.1 versus 0.3 expected. The annual figures both came in 0.2 and 0.3% lower than expected. Overall, these numbers were just good. So why were markets not very enthusiastic today? Well, probably because everybody's just waiting for the consumer price index tomorrow. Now, both pieces of the CPI and PPI come together to come up with the PCE, which is what the Federal Reserve uses to keep hawking. The problem is, you're in an environment where right now, everybody doesn't even really care anymore about these one-off reports. People are almost convinced, whether right or wrong, that the Federal Reserve is just going to stop with their rate reduction process. And as a result, sorry for these noises here, there we go, let's get that fixed. As a result of this process, what'll end up happening is you'll end up getting a Federal Reserve that just goes too far. But markets don't price in the recession or go too far part. What markets just do first is they say, whatever, if the Fed ain't gonna cut rates anymore, sell bonds, especially the longer end of the curve. That's exactly what you're seeing. So even though we got great PPI numbers this morning, what ended up happening? Interest rates went up to 4.8% on the 10-year. Like this, it is very topsy-turvy. And it is usually exactly this kind of behavior that ends up leading a market to start doing a little bit more poorly. It's not great. I'm not happy about hearing it. Because eventually, those rates bite. And when those rates bite, you get layoffs. Now, layoffs aren't necessarily bad. I mean, look, Meta, for example, is cutting 5% of the jobs at their company. They're cutting their, quote unquote, the lowest performing workers, which honestly, if anybody on their resume says that they stopped working at Meta around January of 2025, they're going to be attached to that label, and it's kind of like you're branding people by firing them and saying that. So I feel really bad for anybody who's getting laid off under the assumption that they're the lower performing worker. That's going to be a hard one for people to shake, at least for hirers who are paying attention. But Zuck says that 2025 is going to be a, quote, intense year, and they plan to rehire, but they don't indicate when they plan to rehire. Now, what's more important here is not that they plan to rehire, but look, them doing layoffs, like I was leading into, them doing layoffs is not what matters. They cut a lot of staff in 2022 and 2023, like 10% of their staff, twice as much as they're cutting now. But those years were different. And I'm not saying this time is different. I'm saying those years had layoffs when the broader market still had 2 job openings for every available worker. So you didn't really have to worry about a worker going out and not being able to find a job because there were so many available jobs. Now people are getting laid off and they're getting dumped into an environment where it's taking longer to get a job, sometimes up to 6 months for a tech worker to get a job. and you're getting more cuts at other businesses at the same time when the unemployed to available job gap is a 1-to-1 ratio right now, which you start getting some of these layoffs here in January, February, March, you're going to start having fewer jobs available than there are workers unemployed. That's what starts slowing an economy down. And why are businesses doing it? Well, Microsoft literally took the words out of my mouth because I've been warning about it for a very long time. Microsoft is pausing hiring in its consulting unit, as well as laying off about 1% of our workers to help earnings. It's the same thing that's going on with JPMorgan. Everybody's got to come back to work. Yeah, it's a way to quiet fire people. You've got Lineage, the refrigerator, the warehouse refrigerating company. You know, they stock all the tattooed chef. They stock all the frozen goods or whatever for various different distributors. They IPO'd 6 months ago, and now they're already issuing a bunch of layoffs. Wayfair is cutting 3% of its workforce, a lot of that in Germany. So these are all just announcements we got today. And we're only on day 14. Like, we haven't even hit inauguration yet. Now, what's interesting is Musk, Bezos, Zuckerberg, they're all going to the inauguration, by the way. Michelle Obama is not. That'll be next Monday. We'll be covering that live, obviously, on the channel. But the layoffs are beginning, so we're going to want to pay attention to that, which I think this recipe is so weird. The market reacting poorly to good inflation numbers at the same time as getting layoffs, at the same time as the market thinking, listening to the Fed basically saying everything's fine, there's nothing to worry about, and they're like, all right, you said everything's fine, so they wash their hands of bonds, driving yields up, which actually creates more pressure on these companies to lay off more people. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't feel very good about that. Oh well, we'll see what happens. Elon Musk, on the other hand, has also now gotten sued for failing to report the acquisition of more than the 5% Twitter stake. All right, now this has two sides here. Supporters of Elon Musk say this is just lawfare. That is the easiest argument to make, that anytime anybody you like who is on the right side of the political spectrum gets accused by anything, the immediate go-to is, oh, it's lawfare. Okay, supporters also argue that it doesn't really matter if Elon Musk acquired more than 5% because he overpaid for the stock anyway. So what are you complaining about? The company lost like half of its value after he bought it. Now, maybe it'll be worth more in the future. It's more worth now, maybe, who knows? But we're not there yet. We're not in the future. We're in a place where, hey, at that time, he bought and the value went down. So supporters are like, look, if anything, it was good he overpaid. And other people say this is just lawfare, right? So that's sort of the supporter argument. Others say none of that matters, and Elon just, simple fact, failed to report his trades on time. All right, so here's the background. U.S. District Judge Andrew Carter says shareholders in a proposed class action lawsuit could try to prove that Musk intended to defraud them by waiting 11 days past the U.S. SEC deadline to reveal that he bought a 5% stake in Twitter. Usually, once you own 5% of a company, you're supposed to post a notice that, hey, I now own 5% of a company as a public filing with the SEC. You have a deadline to do that. Elon Musk missed that by waiting 11 days past the filing deadline. Shareholders then, and these are from cases that have been going on. There are a couple cases, one in Delaware, I think one's in Rhode Island, but there are a couple cases that have been going on against Musk, really since earlier this year and since 2022 when he first made his acquisitions. That's when a lot of these problems took place. But anyway, shareholders led by an Oklahoma firefighters pension fund said Musk saved more than $200 million by adding to his Twitter stake and quietly talking with its executives about his plans before disclosing the 9.2% stake in April of 2022. Now, again, in hindsight, it's obvious. For the shares, he overpaid for it. I mean, he overpaid so badly at the time that he wanted to get out of the deal. He wanted to cancel the deal, saying Twitter was full of bots. I was at the All-In Summit when he was complaining about this, when he showed up on Zoom, which was kind of lame, but anyway, he was supposed to show up in person. But anyway, he's like, oh, you're not buying a house, you're buying a termite, making a reference to real estate and the house being infested with termites, which go down into the real estate analogies. At least with a house, you can get rid of the termites. Elon still hasn't gotten rid of the bots. Ooh. But anyway, so look, obviously, at the time, we don't know what would happen in the future. But if you go back to 2022, while this was all happening, when people saw that Elon wanted to start buying shares of X, well, now X, then Twitter, other people wanted to join, and they wanted to buy shares as well. And because Elon failed to disclose his stake until later, yes, that news of him wanting to buy it didn't break until later. Now, obviously, when he wanted to cancel the deal, Twitter fell, the entire stock market fell. So maybe Elon wanted to cancel because the entire stock market was falling. Maybe he wanted to cancel because he thought he overpaid. It doesn't really matter. Whether the stock went up or down really has no bearing on the fact. The fact is, he made an oopsie-doopsie on the timing. Now, should the SEC just go, all right, a lot of people make an oopsie-doopsie, here's a $5,000 fine, whatever? Maybe. But now the SEC is suing Elon Musk. Is it possible they put a highlighter through his name because he's Elon Musk and he's associated with Trump? And right now the SEC is still led by Gary Gensler, who is like the opposite of, Camp Trump? Yeah, totally. And that's where the lawfare argument comes in. So I could see both sides, but it's very important to know there are actually two sides here. And obviously it takes a lot longer than, a single tweet to explain this, hence why I'm explaining it here, because I think that people who watch these Meet Kevin reports really value perspective, and I really do my best to try to give both sides of the perspectives, which now I'm going to give you both sides of perspectives of on Pete Hegseth, who had his Secretary of Defense confirmation hearing this morning, well, at least round one of questioning. So I'm just gonna hit the drama points. So I watched this for like hours this morning while I was building the studio. By the way, I'm still not done building the studio, so forgive me, like things are clunky, I don't have my cameras in the right place yet, the lighting isn't right yet. It's been a lot. I think I'm 50 to 80% of the way there. I'm somewhere in that range. I've still got, probably another 6 hours of finalizing here to do. But anyway, the biggest drama points that have come up so far, I can't believe that this is one of them, but apparently Pete has a tattoo of the Jerusalem cross, which has been seen popularized during the Crusades on shields or the coat of arms for various different, quite frankly, it was on a coat of arms for the city of Jerusalem at one point. It's on the flag of Georgia, which is a country, not the state, Georgia. It's a symbol of Christianity. It's a symbol of Christ. It's literally inscribed into the floor of the church where Jimmy Carter was put to rest. Like, this is a pretty common symbol. But some people see it as a symbol of, like, Christianity's the best, or white supremacy, or whatever. I don't see it as that. I think people are trying to make something out of nothing here, but I just want to mention it. There are representations of this going back again to the Crusades, but even before that, some people say the sort of large cross in the middle and then the 4 crosses to the side symbolize Christ and his 5 wounds. Some say it symbolizes Christ and his 4 gospels. Some say it represents Christianity in the middle and then the spread to the 4 corners of the world. That's when they thought the earth was flat. Anyway, he was a former Army National Guardsman. He served at Guantanamo Bay, Iraq, Afghanistan, multiple different duties. I don't really understand fully the whole, National Guard, but then deployed. I'm just going to be frank there. If somebody can give me an explanation on that in the comments, that'd be great. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay? After he served for multiple years and on various different duty tours, he became a Fox contributor in 2024 and became a co-host with Kennedy in 2018. Now, I like Kennedy. She was a big fan of me when I ran for governor. We've gone to lunch together in Manhattan. She's a wonderful person. I think she's great. And I saw her on Fox, I think it was this morning actually, and her house survived so far, knock on wood, the fire, because she's got a house over here as well. But anyway, the largest criticism of Pete so far have really been based on his potential or alleged treatment of women. Now, I don't know, but it does seem like Pete, based on what I saw in his testimony, it kind of seems like he admits to cheating on his second wife and then having now a 7-year-old daughter with now his third wife. That combined with comments that he's made on podcasts and books that women shouldn't serve in combat roles and that standards shouldn't be lowered for women. A lot of people agree with that, by the way. Some people agree with both of those. Some people agree with just the second one, that standards shouldn't be lowered, right? I think any woman that could meet the standards that sort of the average enrolled dude meets, fine with me. That's my take. My opinion doesn't so much matter though. It does not help that in 2018, his very mother, so 6 years ago, he's 44, so when he was 38, his mother wrote in an email, "I have no respect for any man that belittles, lies, cheats, sleeps around, and uses women for his own power and ego. You are that man and have been for years. And as your mother, it pains me and embarrasses me to say, but it is the sad, sad truth." Now, in an interview with the New York Times, his mother regrets that and says she wrote that in anger during the divorce and followed it up with an apologetic email, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, my point is, look, he's got some blemishes, but then again, who doesn't? Everybody's got some oopsie doopsies, and I'm not trying to dismiss cheating. I'm not. That is not my job here to do at all. Don't cheat, okay? But in this case, this is what they are trying to get against him. Now, there are also allegations that he potentially had inappropriate personal conduct, or ultimately there are allegations here of financial mismanagement as well when he was working for certain organizations such as the Veterans for Freedom and Concerned Veterans for America groups. He ended up stepping aside from those roles through some of these allegations, and then later ended up getting a job at Fox. He was a commentator at Fox, or commentator as they like to say, at Fox, and he's been a commentator there since about 2013. And in 2018, he got a co-host role and eventually ended up moving on to Fox and Friends. Since then, he's potentially earned as much as $6 million as a broadcaster, speaker, and author per filings. All right, so that's a little bit on Pete. He's very likely to get approved. The Senate Armed Services Committee has 14 Republicans, 13 Dems, so he can really only afford to lose one Republican and still get confirmed. It's likely he is going to get confirmed, though. So far, his performance has actually been, in my opinion, pretty decent. Oh, look at this. I was just going to talk about the fires, and look who's on TV.
With the policies, protect you from a future earthquake, protect you from a future fire, protect you from preventing insurance companies' prices of going up. Do you believe that's going to happen? The answer is no. Number two, if you choose to build a house and you want to rebuild, how long do you think it's going to take to get those permits? Probably 12, 24, 36 months. Number three, if you choose to have kids, why would you raise your kids in the school system of California, no matter what part of California you're in? Why would you do that? So you don't trust the system. Number four, if you choose to start a small business in California, do you think they've cleaned the homelessness? They got $24 billion of taxpayer money, and homelessness just went up. In America, we have 770,000 of homeless people in America. 181 of it is in California. This man has been the governor for 6 years,
Newsom.
The lieutenant governor prior to that for 8 years. His policies have destroyed a once great state. This is why you saw that tweet.
All right. So
he donated to my campaign for governor, by the way.
we have empty reservoirs. We find out $650 million allocated to make the port of L.A. green. We found out that the state, you know, that they have $2.6 billion allocated for firefighting, but $101 million was cut from that. We know that the city of Los Angeles cut money. We know that they're spending $100 billion on electric vehicles. We know that the city of Los Angeles is spending $800 grand on electric street sweepers, but they're cutting the fire department budget. How do you fix stupid? Because it's all stupid and it's all preventable.
Well, I mean, you saw the exchange with Mayor Bass where she went up there and she said, well, I'll never, as a mayor, I'll never leave the states. I'll never go abroad. She left 5 times. The leaders are not leading that state. But think about it this way. The Palisades, you look at all the fires, 80,000 acres, 24 death toll that we know about right now, all the homes, $250 billion of damages today. Reservoir Santa Ynez, 117 million gallons of water it can have. Since February of last year, it's been zero. Why? Because there was a hole in the cover that they had. That was 1 mile away from the fire that took place. We can look at so many different angles.
And higher in
Sean.
elevation.
It's just bad policies. And they sit there thinking people are not going to be leaving. The next phase of people leaving, maybe Hollywood doesn't leave. Maybe the boomers in California that have lived there for a while don't leave.
Let me tell you
Maybe
the
some of the
last
folks that are sitting there that have family ties, restaurants, businesses don't leave. But that 35 to 45-year-old that knows the next 20 years are going to be the best money-making years of their careers, they're looking at Nevada, they're looking at Texas, and they're looking at Florida.
And I can't blame them for looking at any one of those. But I will tell you, they don't get a penny unless they adopt the science of forestry so that the American taxpayer won't have to give one more penny to California. Frankly, in many ways, they should have to fix this themselves. They elected these people. They wanted these environmental radicals in office, and this is what they got. And sadly, I bet they elect Kamala next. That's pathetic.
Oh.
All right, appreciate you being with us. When we come back, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they continue to embarrass themselves on the way.
All right, well, forgive me. I'm not trying to come across as one-sided here. I've for a very long time been frustrated with the politics of California. I've just had this mindset of, like, hopefully I can get my voice out and change, help be part of the change of California rather than just leaving it. But leaving it is obviously the easy choice. I mean, nothing there we haven't heard from Patrick Bet-David. A lot of passion, obviously, there. And he's not wrong about the Santa Ynez Reservoir, which is a local-run, Los Angeles Water and Power run facility that was empty. Gavin Newsom points the finger by saying, oh, well, it's not state-run. So, okay, well, you're still in charge of the state. And that reservoir had a higher altitude than the Palisades, which could have contributed to water pressure in the Palisades, where 20% of fire hydrants stopped working. Patrick Bet-David also rightly complains about homelessness. It's worth noting that we just had an auto fire in Ventura County, just about 8 minutes from me. It burned about 55 acres last night. Was started around 6:30. It was contained at about 12:30. We've got a lot of firefighters out. Very, very quick response times in SoCal right now. We've got about another 24 hours of serious winds that we're going to have to deal with. But after that, we should be on the chill mode, if you will, hopefully. Excuse me. But the auto fire was probably started, and this is my speculation, but it was started in the river bottom out here, which the river bottom here is almost always occupied by homeless. They have encampments down there, and it's not uncommon for their space, their little kind of flame heaters or whatever to catch things on fire, especially when winds are very strong and one of them gets blown over, and then all of a sudden the gas spills, and boom, there you go. There's your wildfire. So very, 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 very common out here. Usually they don't go to 55 acres. This one did. Went up to a golf course. Golf course, because we had water, turned its landscape sprinklers on. That was clutch. I just also quickly want to mention regarding Pete, worth saying that regarding Pete, there is some speculation that potentially was this a favor to Fox News to keep Trump in his in their good graces. Some were saying. That's, just something to pay attention to. But anyway, a lot of news today about the same spot reignition for the Palisades fire. We already covered that 2 days ago. So if you want to know, just type into YouTube, Meet Kevin, cause of Palisades fire. And you'll see the Meet Kevin report from 2 days ago where we already went into this. So I'm not going to rehash that. I just want you to know, yes, I'm seeing all the other mainstream media talk about it or whatever, but I'm like, bro, this is old news. Okay, we've covered this 2 days ago. Fine. They're just now getting to it. Classic. But I did get a little bit more detail on how the Getty survived, which I've already gone through how the Getty survived. Brush clearing, the sort of ignition of very dry brush that sort of looks like rosemary, where it lights up on fire and then it burns itself out because there's so little fuel, keeping tree canopies high, blah, blah, blah. We covered a lot of that. But specifically, they also used acacia shrubs and oak trees. Apparently, both of these are known for absorbing a lot of water, and they don't burn as easily or potentially at all because they're wet compared to, obviously, the inside of your attic, which is very, very dry. Another thing is because they have a positive pressure air conditioning system, they actually blow air out of the building. You know how usually when you have your air conditioning on inside of your home, and you kind of feel like around the edge of a door, you can kind of feel air getting sucked into the home because the blower motor is and it's just sucking from everywhere. Well, that can actually suck embers in. It can suck embers into your attic vents. It could suck embers through doors or cracks or whatever. Well, because they pressurize their ventilation system, it's actually more like pushes air out of the system and out of the building, and that keeps smoke either compartmentalized or out, but also embers out. In addition to that, they also have their own 1 million gallon water tank and another 50,000 gallon water tank. Very interesting. Now, there's also talk about how Gavin Newsom reduced CEQA requirements. I think this is like nonsensical because like CEQA, let's be real, like every time the governor signs an executive order or a law saying, yeah, get approvals done within 30 days, it still ends up taking a year anyway because local governments are like, yeah, we're not staffed for this, sorry. So I've literally gone through that. So that is not coming from a place of trying to bag on California. It's, I've been through the system. All right, dad joke of the day. What do you call a Mexican guy that gets his car stolen? Carlos. Okay, now on to the Daily Wealth. Today. Quick one. One of my favorite hacks for actually getting things productively done is make sure you schedule something fun with your family or your friends. For me, back in the day, that used to be like 6 o'clock Ventiki Mai Tais. And then you're like trying to rush, get everything done, so you're ready to go get your Mai Tai. Now it's like bowling with my 9-year-old. And so I love that. Big fan. But there's a hack to that. When you actually put something on the calendar that you have control of, you know, it's like you can go, hey, I'm gonna be 15 minutes late or whatever, and you just leave the house 15 minutes later. It's not like it's the hardest deadline. But because you have a deadline, you have something to achieve or plan towards, and then you actually pressure yourself to get your work done. So, cool little tricks. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Still working on the set, so forgive me, and we'll see you in the next one. All right, folks? Thank you so much. Goodbye, and good luck.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.